Welcome back to Ukraine SitRep. I am actually in DC getting ready to do about a week of media week at the Pentagon with about 18 different interviews. It's going to be interesting. We'll try to stream live while we're there a little bit, but we're going to pre-tape a lot. And that's why we're pre-taping our good friend Pete Blaber now about multiple issues. We're going to talk Ukraine, but first I want to talk Venezuela. Pete, what's your understanding of what's happening there?
Yeah, so it's incredibly nuanced. We mentioned it last week about the logic of why. You got to state 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? And we hadn't heard that, but we have a better understanding. There's quite a bit more fidelity, and with talking to contacts, we understand better what the urgency and what the purpose is. This all goes back to not just the 2020 election. There was knowledge even before that. A lot of people might be surprised to learn that Smartmatic, the software maker of Dominion voting machines that were used in the 2020 election, is owned and operated out of Venezuela. It's owned by Venezuela through some cutout LLCs. The three founders are Venezuelans who went to the Venezuelan equivalent of MIT. That software was tested as far back as 2008 in California, wouldn't you know it? It was, and believe it or not, because 2008 California was, I think Schwarzenegger was either still in as governor or he just left. It still had some legitimacy, and guess what? California rejected the Smartmatic software, said that this looks like it was designed to steal elections. So we know what happened in 2020. A lot of states have outlawed Dominion voting machines, and in fact, there's only one county in America, a large county, that says it's still using them. And that's L.A. County, right next door to me.
Georgia still uses them too.
Okay, with the Smartmatic software. So there you go.
Well, not they're Dominion, so I don't know. I mean, it's the same. Yeah.
Right, it is the same because Dominion's a Canadian company, and
that's one of the issues is they've kind of had babies everywhere, so they've got ES&S and several others that run the same stuff or similar stuff. But go ahead.
Yeah, so a lot of information, a lot of good work's been done. I know Gary Burnson, the ex-CIA guy, has got a book out. It's a good, comprehensive book. A lot of people have been talking about this, but it's now a fact. The good proportion of the servers where votes were gone and washed during the 2020 election were in Venezuela. The software, the guys who operate the massive behind-the-scenes group of individuals, bots, and everything else who monitor the algorithms is in Venezuela. The amount of money the cartel in Venezuela has is in the trillions of dollars. So they've go way beyond any Mexican cartel in capability and capacity, and so. Not only that, but Maduro has welcomed in Al Qaeda agents and provocateurs, and there's no doubt there's Al Qaeda in Venezuela. Some of them use a rat line over land to get into the U.S. Others are just there operating, trying to continue to gain inroads in Central and South America. So. They know beyond a shadow of doubt that this cartel is 100% operating against the United States in both drugs and voting machines. Sickeningly, there's empirical evidence of meetings between Americans in the Democratic Party and those individuals from Smartmatic. The heads of the Black Lives Matter protest group during the height of the protests visited Venezuela and reportedly were given $40 million while they were down there, cash, as a donation to BLM. So it's a real cesspool. There's plenty of national interest But again, that needs to be described. I believe, I know you do too. Nothing's going to be simple down there, and right now starting a war, I think, would be catastrophic. But there's a national threat down there, and I just don't know if direct action is the way to neutralize it. But that's what we know, and that's an update on Venezuela.
Well, I mean, there's the issue of confronting a threat that harmed our country, which is one issue. The other issue is the elections. So, why not just get rid of all the machines? I mean, that's very simple.
Yeah. Well,
executive
the same
order,
reason, the same reason we don't have peace in Ukraine.
Yeah.
We have people in the United States who actively work against getting rid of those machines, and will use all the lawfare that they can muster, which we see every day. Every day, President Trump tries to do something in the name of best interest of the American people. It gets called out by a district judge or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
That's the reason we still have Dominion voting machines. But if we all rise up and have fidelity on the issue, knowledge of how serious this is, I think everyone will agree that we shouldn't have them, and they should be eradicated forever.
Well, that's a good point. You said rise up in fidelity. Part of the problem is the media, obviously, in the mainstream media, is not going to do that. The other part is the conservative Inc. media. I mean, we've had Chris Gleason on our show at least 25 times detailing the software issues in Florida and elsewhere, but he's not invited on any of the other shows. They just, a lot of these conservative Inc. people just won't go there. So we will. We just need to get bigger and more people aware of us. But let's switch to Ukraine. Man, we got to start doing this daily, Pete.
Yeah.
There's so much news coming out, man. So where do you want to start? You want to start with the map?
Yeah, let's just go right to the battlefield, and then we'll go. So just setting this up, we know what's happened in the last few days. The Trump administration issued a 28-point peace plan. It was immediately delegitimized by someone leaking it. We've heard from people on the ground that was Kellogg, who does not like Witkoff. And those were reliable sources. I've seen it in the media also since then. So, right off the bat, the friction started. Zelensky is in a position where he wasn't in before. He's obviously, the NABU has hard evidence that a minimum of 100 million. I've heard it's in the billions. It's the 100 million's one bribe. The total is a couple of billion at least.
Yes.
And remember, we put 180 billion into Ukraine. So all that is going on. Zelensky knows his time is limited. Yermak was forced to resign and then said, "I'm going to the front."
Yeah, he ran to the front. That's
what he says. But
what
it's like a husband who just killed his wife, leaving a fake suicide note, and then traveling to Florida or whatever under a new name. This is just his way. It's a witness protection program. I hope it's not supported by the U.S., but to me, it's his way of disappearing. He's going to go to the front. You'll never hear from him again, and he's going to live somewhere with, definitely tens of millions. We know Zelensky has at least $1 billion. So this guy probably has the same. But that's what's going on now to the battlefield. This is just what Pakrovsk, which we've talked about before. You can see Pakrovsk is 100% cleared right now. That's on the left. To the right is Mirnograd. The only thing left open is the city center. These guys were abandoned. This is, I focus on this one because it's the object lesson in what was broken throughout this war in Ukraine as far as command and control. It was all political. It was all part of the ruse. You remember the air assault raid we showed with the special ops guys, the 11 and 11 that were landed. The first air assault raid of the war. Insane that you'd even send a helicopter to the front, but that's desperation. That showed their desperation. That was a political move. It's been confirmed. Those guys were all found. They all had their flag. The two of them had flags out with cameras when they were killed. But that was a 100% political move. And I only bring it up because that happens all the time, because this just showed that the entire war from the Ukraine Western side is just a production. It's just a mirage that you're seeing, that they present to you with their narrative and their little clips from their perspective. To send 22 of your most elite forces in to plant a flag and take a picture so that you can convince the rest of the Western world, all they care about, that, hey, what Russia says about Pokrovsk is another lie. We control it. But, and I laugh, not because it's funny, because it's so outrageous that this is how stupid they actually are, that they believe that they can continue to pull the wool over, that the way to solve problems that your lies caused is to lie more. And that's what we see out of not just the EU, but these influencers and the warmonger globalists, even in the US, who continue to support this war and put up obstacles to the Trump peace plan. So this just shows the progress. Mirnograd is almost completely taken. Those guys are going to die. Russia is dropping leaflets constantly, so there's a steady stream of POWs surrendering. But still, just as we've reported before, some of those guys, barely know they're surrounded because they have no contact with the outside world. So,
wow, amazing.
Yep.
Where do you want to go next? The battlefield?
Let's just go to some of these other battlefield. I just want to show some of the stuff that we have. So this is the roads to Pokrovsk, and I think they're great pictures. You can just go right through them, Todd. Just to show our our viewers again, this is war. This is the war zone. These are Russians. There's a Russian on a bike. You see they're moving in the fog with these vehicles because drones are almost ineffective in serious fog like this. So keep going. I think there they are repairing the nets. You're going to see what they've come up with to counter the Ukrainian nets. Yeah, and then you just see these vehicles. All the vehicles are cut apart, so you can jump out. Notice there's no doors on any vehicle. That's so you could dive out before a kamikaze drone hits the back. There's no back. There's a car. There's no doors again. Lightweight, good gas mileage. No one cares. You're not going to lose anything if that thing gets blown up.
I didn't do all of them. I only did 5. So
okay, that's all right. But just a shot, and you can see the weather. It's getting nasty over there, cold, rainy, which is a advantage to the Russians. Huge advantage to the Russians. So next, go ahead. I think we have now just some of the friction against the peace treaty. It's in your face. So this is I like this photo because in a quick snapshot, it tells you everything you need to know about the EU's bluster, which right now is the bluster of, hey, Russia, we're not accepting this, and if you think we're scared of you, you're wrong. Well, here's what they actually send out. This is Finland training. I guess they're training how to get on the back of a pickup truck. Because they're laughing, but look at the line down below. And folks, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to make some crass joke about, some countries training. I'm just telling you, you just saw the reality of war. It's a uncompromising, incredibly arduous, worst time of your life. Every moment could be a moment of complete despair, unless you have a powerful enough mind to change your frame of reference and to stay focused on your purpose. And the only way you can win wars like this, in the category World War I, World War II, Korea, is with hardened, resilient soldiers. And you don't shake and bake hardened and resilient soldiers. That
No,
doesn't
you
mean you
don't.
can't train them up, but man, it's got to be quality training. That's not threatening their lives, kicking them in the head like we've seen videos. That's teaching them, and over time, incrementally building up those traits, that
Yeah.
resilience, that hardness, that ability to push on no matter what. Uh, and so, this bluster you're hearing is insane. And this is a great follow on. This is Viktor Orban. He just visited Moscow. And his statement is as profound as it is accurate. The war is lost, but admitting this will cause a political earthquake. He went on to say, um, you know, we can go to every phase of this war from 2022 on. And in 2022, peace was a signature away, but that peace was sabotaged by Merkel and Boris Johnson. He has also shined light in the last few days that one of the things the EU hates about Trump is during the Biden admin, they were running this war. We were just paying for it and sending resources. They were running the war, and they can't stand this now that Trump's saying, "Hey, I'm not doing it anymore."
Yeah.
But Orban also pointed out that if Boris Johnson and Merkel hadn't sabotaged the Minsk Accords, it, that's only 2022. So 3 years ago, Ukraine would have 1 million more men alive, their best men, their patriots, their fathers, brothers, sons. Um, they'd still have them, and they'd have all of Donbass. The only thing they wouldn't have is Crimea, but they'd have all of Donbass. There'd be no destruction. They'd have an economy. So Orban really hit the nail on the head, and everyone needs to continue to remind themselves of this as they cast shade at the peace process. And here's the head of NATO. Again, this is the hallmark of all of these globalists, and it's the same hallmark you see in Trump derangement syndrome here in the US. The only thing that ever comes out of their mouths is accusations and name callings. I should say baseless accusations and name calling. So here's another one. How can you walk up on stage and go, he cannot be trusted, and then not give an example? There's no example. There's videotapes of Bill Clinton while he was in office being grilled. Do you trust Putin? Yes, I trust Putin. He's an honorable man. I've had long conversations with him, and we don't have anything to show where there's a reason to not trust him. And of course, that's the case today. So if someone tells you this again, say, give me an example of why we can't trust Putin. And you can't come up with one. But this is what's happening. And look how he finishes it. This is what I meant by the training. He wants to ensure that that Moscow never dares to attack because the consequences will be catastrophic.
This is the world's largest nuclear power with a
Yeah.
much bigger army than all of NATO combined,
Yeah.
not including the United States.
And just Todd, so far ahead technologically, especially of NATO, of EU NATO. But even us, we need time right now to continue to solidify, to repair the damage done from 20 to 24, which was massive. And we're doing that, and we got the right people, and it's happening. But it just like training resilient and hardcore infantrymen, you can't be shaked and baked. You can't do that in a short period. You can't retrain and reorganize a military overnight. It takes time. So, you have all these globalists. Yeah, this was just, you heard this from us about the 47,000 people in October. We were talking about 1,500 a day. So Putin came out, and I put it up because Putin has never commented in this war. He's never given a statistic. He's giving them now. And he prefaced this with, because the propaganda is so outrageous from the EU, I need to state some facts, and this was one of them. But just again, you and I do it every time
Stunning.
because we want to honor these 47,000 men in 1 month. And if remember, the Alaska was in August, so there was an attempt to get him Zelensky talking with Putin right after Alaska. If he had just gone to the table and said, we will negotiate, they'd have those 47,000, which matter. We're
Yeah.
talking over a million, but this is per month. And so I believe November is going to be worse because it all across the front. Cities are falling. We had last week incidents in 2 brigades refused orders. A brigade outside Uye which is down south, refused to hold in place. They were ordered by Syrskyi to hold in place. They were about to be surrounded. Same thing we walked our viewers through in Pakros. They said, screw this. It ain't happening to us like it did at Pakros. And they fell back on their own. So, we mentioned last week the last man to die syndrome. That's real. And you, in an unmotivated force that doesn't believe in their leaders, it spreads like the plague, and that's what's happening. And you can't blame the Ukrainians. Their strategy. They understand it's hard broke, and of course they understand the reality on the battlefield. You hold in place in a position you cannot hold, you're going to die. So it makes sense to live to fight another day, fall back to another position, and try again and see what happens.
So there's that. These two areas are surrounded. We discussed that.
Yep.
And this is
yeah, a great just Yermak, who just resigned. You could see who one of his best friends is. That's Soros' son. Constantly visiting Ukraine, constantly adding money, constantly helping them choreograph the censorship industrial campaign that supports this fake mirage of a war. But that's two evil dudes right there, not giving one crap about one of those 47,000 men we just mentioned. All they care about is power and control. And that Ukraine is nothing more than is a tool for them to achieve those ends.
This is Zakharova.
Yeah, I wanted this on. This is the spokesperson for the Russian government, and she's talking about Kaja Kallas, who came out. She really is unhinged, and she's the second in command of the EU. So she came out with a speech, and she said, Russia has attacked 19 countries in the last 100 years and has never been attacked. So, 1941, 1942, the Eastern Front, which I also, if anyone out there is interested, I highly advise people to look at that. There's all kinds of good stuff on Rumble and YouTube. You can spend a half hour and see the progress of that battle. They really were fighting exactly where they are right now.
I know.
And this was the massive German attack, 3 million men on Russia, which ended up being the demise of Germany. But they fought the southern front of the Eastern Front, the southern group of forces, were exactly where the battlefield is now, Pakros, Uye. And interestingly enough, I did a paper on this a few years back, and I pulled it out and realized, wow, Russia learned an incredible lesson from that. So in 41, the Russians had pockets surrounded by the Germans 4 times. In one of those pockets, they lost 750,000 men. The Germans killed every guy in there, either through direct action or starvation afterwards. That happened 4 more times with massive numbers, 300,000, 200,000, surrounded in pockets.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, a family-owned and operated investment advisory practice. I'm a certified portfolio manager, and my job is to help you make better decisions with your money. One of the things we try to avoid is investing in companies that push the woke agenda. If you're invested with one of the big firms out there, there's a pretty good chance that you're feeding the beast that hates your values. Our company is 100% conservative, and we'd love to have an opportunity to work with you. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big, proud American Eagle logo.
I'm watching my friends gain more and more weight. And then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
So, it's funny about war, and they always tell you, read history, study history, especially the history of the terrain you're on. So I think if people had studied the history of battles on this terrain, they would have learned a lot. Remember, the Battle of Kursk was the biggest battle of this whole campaign.
So there's another layer to this, Pete, in that I've always thought that what they're doing is using NATO forces in the U.S. military, essentially, in our intelligence and command and control and everything, to fight an old war for them. Because you've got Nazi elements inside Ukraine who are using our forces to fight their war again. That's kind of the way I see this now. And that's also a depopulation exercise, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I would just add to that, again, we've pointed this out, and I didn't want to drown our viewers, but the stuff coming out of Great Britain is just disgusting. And so in that same mode, I think they, that insane hatred of Russia in the part of Great Britain that doesn't fight in wars. So I have many close Brit friends from special ops, Brit special ops, who are my brothers, and I know they are in the exact mode we were in from 2020 to 2024. They're being held hostage. They have no say in the insanity of what's going on. But these globalists are exactly right. They want to refight the war. So this is another, you can see even Western media is starting, because they don't want, they can no longer, some of them, promote the propaganda they've been promoting. It's worsening. It's running out of soldiers. Russian investments in mass drone production are starting to pay off. They're cutting off Ukraine's supply routes behind lines, and new weapons on the way threaten to make eastern cities like Kharkiv and Dnipro uninhabitable. So Go ahead. I think we have another one that's even more relevant than this.
That's all of the ones I have. Sorry, I thought I
Okay,
got them all.
so just on
I
that
got
one.
5 videos, by the way. But go ahead.
Okay, so we'll go to those next. But just on that, I want to say that you know we talked about the corruption earmark. Zelensky's named in all, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars. So that's hundreds of millions, and again, I believe it's billions. So let's just call it a billion. Has been stolen from EU and mostly US taxpayers because we put the most 180 billion into Ukraine. So, but that's not where your outrage should be focused. Your outrage should be focused on what these globalists continue to say every minute. And I just listened to two ex-U.S. generals, Hodges and Petraeus, say the same thing. Ukraine would be doing fine if we just gave them more money. If we just gave them a couple hundred more million for the key weapons they need and the ammunition. Well, let's just take that and put that in the context of what we just found out from this corruption exposure. They took that money from those Ukrainian soldiers. And a great example of how much damage that did is to just use what was happening in Russia to contrast it. In Russia, which does not have a lot of money and understood this from the beginning, they have to be efficient with their money. And there's a great, and we'll put it on the next episode, there's a great interview by a Russian blogger of a Russian civilian who works for their drone design and manufacturing, and he's incredibly upfront. This thing should be, people should be going to school on this, on how to build a drone military. The Russians, to save money, one of the biggest things they did was they replaced their composite propellers on their drones with balsa wood. So you think about that. The reason is elementary. First off, balsa wood costs tens of times less than composite. So let's just call it 10-1 savings. And all you're doing is losing a couple miles per hour in speed, which is irrelevant, and nothing in distance because it's lighter with the balsa wood. But Russia began making their drones out of balsa wood to save money. Right now, Russia has tipped the balance in this war because they have a 10-1 drone advantage over the Ukrainians. Additionally, from the beginning, if anyone wants to read in my first article on Ukraine, the chronology of the Ukraine war, what really happened, you'll see that the advisors to the Ukraine military were calling them out in 2021 before the war started. One of the main things they were calling out was their squad radios don't work. They're horrible. They never replaced those squad radios. And you could replace those things with something from Radio Shack and have made an improvement on what they have, because low voltage radios that are only transmitting short distances are incredibly difficult to intercept anyway. But at least they'd be able to talk to the guy in the trench to their left and right. They couldn't even do that. And why? Because they didn't have the new radios. Why did they lose the drone battle? Because they weren't putting the money in. They didn't take it seriously enough to do it efficiently, as if every dollar they were spending was their last. And so what people need to take away from that is this Ukrainian corruption should not be dismissed. They should not be let off as part of the negotiation. They stole money from these Ukrainian patriots who are now, dead. Let's think of those 47,000. That's how serious what they did was. And not
Back
just,
a couple of years ago in Kiev, the whole narrative was gold leaf facelifts. I mean, face, cleansing, all the girls there was so much money just washing around. It was going to be fine. And they blew all that money, essentially.
Yeah. Well, the pictures will come out. Everything's being shadow banned. So Zelensky and Yermak live together in a basement bunker.
And the rumor is they're gay, but I can't.
Yeah, exactly. And they have a gold toilet.
Yeah.
And every time I think the Marcoses had a gold toilet, or
Yeah.
I think it was them.
Well,
But you know, you
Yanukovych too. But no,
did
had a
he? But
gold.
you think about
He had a,
that.
yeah.
Why would you want a gold toilet? You
No,
know,
it's just it's obscene.
you got to be out of your mind. You should be held accountable just for being an idiot.
Yeah.
Uh, so why not a toilet made out of $100 bills? That makes about as much sense. But the corruption was in your face. Again, Zelensky knows nothing about military ops. He's the guy running the show. It's a mess, and Russia. No one doubts anymore this fact. Zelensky's got to go. No one is going to allow a peace treaty signed by an illegitimate politician to walk away and think they have a long-term solution, especially with the right-wing neo-Nazis that will continue to have major influence in Ukraine.
Well, there's my sources are telling me that and Putin even, and I think Lavrov came out, or maybe it was Medvedev. There's a word in Russia, zapadlo, which it means I have principles and I'm not going to deal with you just out of my principles. And that's essentially what Putin is saying. He won't, because there's a video that I don't know if did you see the video? We put it out where Zelensky's talking on the evening address and a big wad of cocaine comes out of his nose.
Yeah, I saw it. Yep.
So the rumor on the street is like Putin is not going to deal with a drug addicted, money laundering freak, and so they're saying he's not going to sign anything with Zelensky. So I think you're right.
Yeah. So again, back to the propaganda, and I mentioned Great Britain. So today, the Sun came out with an article update on the peace negotiations. Said Trump will recognize occupies Ukraine as Russia in bombshell gift to Putin to help secure peace deal after talks. So immediately, Ben Hodges got on a podcast. And remember, he's talking to Europe. He's talking to EU people, and he's telling them, "Hey, there's no deal that should give any land to Russia." Petraeus said the same thing 2 days ago on another podcast. And again, we talked last week about it, but everybody needs to remember a couple of basic facts, and they're easy to remember about the elections. Of this disputed territories. First, Crimea, March 16th to 18th of 2014 was the Crimean referendum, which was 100% called for and run by Crimeans. 98% voted for reverting to Russian control, which, remember, they consider themselves always as Russians, but they also had loyalty to Ukraine. So after that election, that 98% to leave Ukraine and join Russia, a separate poll, I think JD Power did it, went in to see what people thought of the election. So 91% of the people in Crimea said it was free and fair. And those same 91%, when asked what was the main reason you left, they said the only reason we left was because of the threat from neo-Nazis who were killing us without any repercussions. We needed someone to protect us. So that's March 16th, 18th, Crimea. May 11th, 2014, same thing. I want to just call this up real quick so I can read it. So on May 11, 2014, disregarding Vladimir Putin's appeal to delay it, the ethnic Russian citizens of Donbass went to vote on their independence referendum. With the neo-Nazi-led Maidan protests and Odessa massacre, they voted 89%. So that's in both Donetsk and Luhansk. 89% of voters voted for independence on a turnout of 75%. So every time you hear these globalists, these propagandists start saying, "Hey, there cannot be any consolation in accepting territorial losses. Anytime you hear that, you need to know that what you're hearing is a massive propaganda lie. And I'd ask anyone who is listening to go ahead and remind these people that the people of those oblasts, those regions, have a say, and they've already said it, and it can't be any clearer. And I bet if you went back to Crimea and took the vote today, it'd be closer to 100% than 98, because no one wants to go back to that system. And as long as those neo-Nazis and the right wing control Ukraine, they're never even going to consider it.
So I just want to play a bit of, this isn't one of your videos, but I interviewed George Eliason in Donbass in January of 22. He's an American reporter, and he was telling me about the ethnic cleansing. A lot, we've gotten a lot of pushback that we said yesterday in the article that there was ethnic cleansing in Ukraine. Well, 14,000 people died before the 22 invasion. So this is, I'm not going to play much of this, but this is George Eliason. He's in Donbass in hiding, talking. This is in January of 2022. But here we go.
Yeah, we'll start there.
Hold on, I gotta turn it
Ukraine
on 1 second. Okay, here we go.
Is saying that Russia's on the border and they're ready to come across and they're gonna invade. But back in, it was October, November, the closest that the Russian army actually got, the military actually got, was 160 miles from the border. They were closer to Belarus than they were to Ukraine.
Anyway, I'm not going to play all that, but we've interviewed George multiple times. He's in Donbass talking about the ethnic cleansing, and I didn't take the time to find it in this video. But you can find it, just type in Eliason, Elliason on cdm.press, and you'll find the interviews. All right, back to you.
Yeah, and I'd also tell our viewers, if you go onto my Substack, substack.pblaber.com, and go to my article, How to Make Sense of the Ukraine War, a chronology of key events and decisions. I have all the links. I have links to videos. I have links to independent reporters on video from Donbass reporting in that time frame, 14, 15, 16. And you can watch, you can see the results of the ethnic cleansing. You can hear the anguish and despair in these citizens, and almost all of them are seniors, because that's the only people that stayed back. They had nowhere to go. And remember, last week I told you Ukraine immediately cut off their pensions, so they had no money left. And Todd, I don't know if you got those videos I sent of Russia rescuing those civilians.
Yes, I'll just play some of this because it's there's no English subtitles.
Yeah. Just let's play that because I want to reinforce something. So these aren't even seniors. They were there with their little girl.
Первоначально нам начали скидывать в бутылках полулитровых конфеты и записки. Не бойтесь русского.
Let it go forward a little bit to
Все это съедобно.
just to show them in their house. There we go.
Но после этих сбросов начали приходить к нам ВСУшники. И вот мы заметили сбросы, вот начали нас так. Да.
And this went on. The little girl started crying in one of the videos. You can pull it down, but. And there's two more of those, and we don't need to show them, but I want our viewers to again understand every city that Russia takes, this is what's happening. These are Russian people. So it's Ukraine that's the occupiers in eastern Ukraine, what we knew is eastern Ukraine in Donbass. These people have been begging for Russia to rescue them since 2022. When the war started. And of course, it's finally happening, but you're seeing it all over, these incredibly grateful citizens that Russia is finally back to rescue them. And again, you and I aren't taking sides here, and I'm not saying this means Russia's in the right and Ukraine's not, but when people talk about Donbass and Crimea and even Zaporozhye, they need to understand these people are ethnic Russians who want to be part of Russia. So don't listen to the propagandists. Listen to them and realize the person is lying to you when they say Ukraine should never give up any territory. It's not their territory, and it's their fault it's not their territory. By Petro Poroshenko, the words he said, which we read last time, and by the ethnic cleansing that he launched with neo-Nazis, the newly created National Guard of Ukraine, they killed 14,000 people and injured many more. And that's history. You can't cover that up. You can't escape it. That's what you did to those people. And so they're never coming back. So stop fretting over something. It's not going to come back to Ukraine. You blew that. And it rightfully so. If someone said to send Donbass back to Ukraine, the U.S. should consider going in to protect them, because these are people who have been through the worst, the most hopeless situation from 14 onward. Think about that. Think about how long they've been sucking it up under foreign control. And so, the lies continue, but, the peace talk continues to move forward. Looks like there's some actual traction going on right now. You and I will continue to monitor it, keep our viewers updated. And like you said, just about every day, I wish we were given daily updates. So maybe we'll do more next week.
Maybe we do twice a week until this thing's over. So let me just show a little bit of these videos since we got them. This is a robotic
good
French lane device.
No, so what this is
Данный аппарат –
a
это
wire lane
шеекопатель,
device.
кабелеукладчик, который на 1,5-2 штыка вкапывает кабель. В работе он очень прост, то есть он прокапывает
So it's
и
laying
тут
a
же сразу
wire
закладывает.
that goes
Никакой
between
работы
positions, folks. And
человеческой
the
практически.
reason I put this in, that thing is remote controlled. It's a drone. Because remember what we said a couple episodes ago, technology changes, but the basics of war don't change. Shoot, move, communicate. Okay, that's communicate. And lazy shortcuts will get you killed. So what the Russians have always been world leaders on is everything to do with EW, electronic warfare, both protecting and attacking the other side. But this is just a perfect example. If we had a World War I and World War II veteran here, they'd tell us that's SOP. Every time you get into a position, you set up wire to the group to your left, right, and rear. And of course, the U.S. military did that all the way up till probably the 90s. And it's painstaking work, but that's how you win. And, folks, again, on technology, look at all the advances, but you know what? Nothing can intercept wire communication, direct point-to-point wire communication, unless you interrogate
stuff.
Right. So just a good example of the old and the new.
Here's one example of tit for tat back and forth on technology. The drone nets were stopping the drones.
This is what Russia has come up with to defeat Ukrainian drones.
So those were drone nets that were stopping the FPV drones, first person vision coming in, meaning you're flying like a drone in and you see where you're going. Those were stopping them so they would explode away from you and not kill you, but they're burning the nets with another drone, right? So that's technology against technology.
Yeah.
I got two more videos. I don't know really what they are. One's a guy and this one.
Штурманули бліндаж наш. І ми здалися в плен. Ми сиділи в окопі.
So he's saying that, the horror of his position, right?
Yeah, he's saying how the training of the AFU servicemen was carried out under the guidance of foreign specialists. Almost all of his were British instructors. They taught them tactics, medicine, and fire training, but their attitude toward Ukrainian soldiers was blatantly disrespectful. And you hear this a lot. Again, this is not a generalization. It's from guys who trained them. The Ukrainians were not the easiest people to train right from the beginning. It's kind of the Slav mindset. They were skeptical, and they should be, I can't even imagine some of the trainers that were probably sent out to train them, because they knew they were fighting a different war from Afghanistan or Iraq. So you needed to win them over. And if you don't take the time to win your pupils over with respect, you're never going to get it. And if you add in the same thing they're dealing with their own chain of command, which is disrespect instead of respect, you're never gonna get into them. And this guy said, the result is undisciplined forces. My colleagues were engaged in mass looting, robbing private homes, and stealing valuable objects and property of civilians. And again, why is that important? Because people don't understand. It's the Ukrainian soldiers who are in foreign land when they were occupying these cities. They were the occupiers. They didn't care about these people. They're ethnic Russians. Treat them like shit. And every ethnic Russian says that. They survived by hiding out and never peeking their heads up when the Ukrainians were around.
So one last video. I'll just play a little bit of it.
По губам смыслы сквозь слова. Дай мне тебя согреть прямо в моих глазах. Теплая постель, время теряет вновь. И если это сон в нем, я его могу целовать.
So that's some of the drone defense technology.
Yeah, the adaptive, you could see the guy working on it. And that's, again, good soldiers. They're always working on their position. They're always improving their position. It doesn't matter. You have tons of time in combat between, moments of terror and excitement. And good soldiers work on their equipment, improve their positions, and that's what you see. And it happens on both sides. It's important to point out Ukraine has many great soldiers too who have just been abandoned by their chain of command. So plenty of lessons from them, but we don't see them because there's no press. There's no even Ukraine itself does not have embedded cameramen just showing us, and the reason is obvious. They don't want to show them. They don't want their soldiers talking to the press. They don't want to show the predicament they're in. They want to control the narrative as tightly as possible. And again, when people are skeptical and say Russian propaganda, ask them, why is there still no press to this day? Why does Zelensky and no one in Ukraine allow foreign reporters to go to Pokrovsk, even though they're allowed from either side? They can come in from Russia or Ukraine side and view what's happening. And it's because what we started with, this is a massive manufactured mirage. Desperate men make desperate moves, desperate men and women. The desperation is apparent in the EU and the globalists right now. They're trying any lie they can come up with to somehow make it seem like it's not that bad, that we should forget about the corruption, that we have some duty to protect Ukraine, and that it's completely irresponsible to even talk about returning these lands, which the people have already voted overwhelmingly to do to Russia. And that's as much as we can do, Todd, from here.
Yep. So I want to second your point. We're not anti-Ukraine or pro-Russia or vice versa. We're pro-humanity and pro-truth. And we want this war to end, and it's not we're not helping the Ukrainians. I know that for a fact. I had a Ukrainian refugee family in my house for 8 months. I know what's going on over there. So anyway, we'll see you next time. And Pete, we'll talk about trying to move this to twice a week until this conflict is over. Hopefully that won't be long from now. All right. Take care.
Sounds good, Todd. Take care.
Bye.